Awesome.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Another episode of Never Lost, and I'm here with Philo. I'm so excited to speak with you. Hi, Philo.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
You too.
I saw you on Walter's podcast, and I saw you speak so eloquently, and I saw this regal aspect to your character and this just soft-spoken nature that to me, like when you speak, it almost sounds like water. It's beautiful. And so I thought, wow, how lovely it would be to interview Philo, and here we are.
Your wishes
So,
were granted.
yes. So, I want to start by, I don't really know much about you and your
Mm,
story.
mm.
And so I wanted to just get into how you came upon non-duality and what was your apparent path to getting to this point of speaking.
Well, it was a long and arduous path.
Yeah.
And it began when I was very young, about five or so, 4 or 5.
So young. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had what I now understand to be an enlightenment experience at that
Okay.
when I was 5. And I write about it in my book, Imaginary Conversations with Imaginary People. But basically, I was out in the street, caught in a rainstorm. This is in London, so there are lots of rainstorms.
Yes.
And I found refuge under a willow tree in a park near to my house. And while under the tree, I had a oneness experience, like everything became one thing. And this
Mm,
tree kind of symbolized this loving oneness because it was protecting me.
yeah.
And but I had no way to understand what had happened at the time. I was too young. But I never told anybody
Really?
until writing this book. I never told my brothers or sisters or my mom or anyone.
You never
Until
went
I
to
was
your mom and said, "Hey, mom, I had this amazing experience." None of that.
no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of tells you a little bit of the kind of person I was then. I was very introspective and happy
Yes.
to be on my own, and I was on my own for long periods of time. I actually went to school fairly late. I missed preschool and all of that. So I spent a
Oh.
lot of time, inward looking and looking out and being in this sense of oneness with the world. And this continued until probably my puberty years when other things began to kick in.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the late teens, the personalities, the egos, fashion, music, looking cool. And then sometime in my early 20s, that all began to fall away in importance. And
Mm.
I remember at one time I had this pretty good job. I was making quite a lot of money for that age. And I remember
Yeah.
waiting at an ATM machine to use it to get some cash out. And there was a man in front of me, and he wasn't getting cash out. He was just getting his balance, like just checking his balance. And I could tell by the look in his face that he was not happy. And I thought to myself, something is wrong with this picture. Why am I
Yeah.
happy and I have lots of money? And then there are people out there that don't have hardly any money and they're not happy. And that kind of set me off on an examination of life, if you like. And
Mm.
many years after that, I came across a teaching called the Fourth Way, and that
Okay.
emphasizes self-remembering. So self-remembering is the state of being present, being aware of awareness. But what I misunderstood was that self-remembering for me at that time meant this little self here, right? Remembering to be present. And I was caught in that maze for decades, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting anywhere. I knew what presence was. I knew it was here.
Hmm.
It connected with these understandings I had from childhood. But there was this idea of a mini self, a little self trying
Yeah.
to get this.
Yeah.
And I discovered a non-duality in
Hmm.
2019 or so. And that felt like a way through the maze. It was something new for me to self-inquire into presence. So I
Yeah.
spent the pandemic here doing that and had the breakthrough. So those decades of being present were not wasted because the
Hmm.
breakthrough happened very quickly. I just needed to inquire into what was being present. And I
Yes.
understood then that it wasn't the little self. The little self was actually in the way. So that
Mm.
kind of died a death in a particular moment. And then this overall, what I call now being, or the immediacy, was
Hmm.
understood and seen by itself with no little self in the way. And that changed everything. The little self
Mm.
came back online, but now he is subordinate. He knows
Mm.
he knows that he's not the awakened one. He's a
Mm.
vehicle, if you like, for the awakened, the awakeness to manifest, just like we all are.
Mm. Yeah. That confuses me a little bit, little voice and big voice and like, mm, what do you think that is?
So this the force, what I call the force self, there's lots of different, we can call it the ego or the me.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is something that we kind of learn as children. I learned it quite late because I didn't have the interactions, but
Mm.
it's reinforced by family, friends, school, education, television.
Yes.
Everything
Yeah.
reinforces this me
Yeah.
that then thinks it can do stuff. It can awaken. That was the me thinking. And then spiritual practices reinforce that me. There's always a me doing something, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Even the self-inquiry was a me, but it very
Yes.
quickly became obvious that there's no
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah.
one has to inquire into that.
Hmm.
It's kind of paradoxical to understand that there's no me as such,
Yes.
and to see that there's still something, which I call being.
Yes. Okay. And so, did you do many practices along the way?
Well, self-remembering, which was the
Self-remembering.
practice. So actually, self-inquiry brings on the state of self-remembering. It brings on the state of presence. When you inquire into yourself, who am I? Suddenly
Mm-hmm.
presence is there
Mm-hmm.
in a way
Yeah.
that's clear. It's not clouded.
Okay.
And so self-remembering kind of does the same thing. But of course, there's this idea of a self, a little self. And until
Yeah,
that's
because
seen through,
yeah,
go
because I
ahead.
was gonna say who actually sees through, like what remembers what.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So what
Yeah.
sees through is what I call being. And the seeing through is just a colloquialism.
Yeah.
The ego kind of just drops out of the picture and being sees itself. You could say it that way.
So you believe that being can see itself and know itself. So in your perspective, it's a remembering of being to itself.
No, it's not really a remembering, and it's not
Okay.
really a seeing. It's
Yeah.
inherent. It's inherent that being knows being. Otherwise, there
Mm.
would be no being.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
it's one thing. This knowing of being and being itself is one thing,
Yeah.
and it's inherently known. And
Yeah, it's a
it's hard
yeah.
to grasp any deeper than that in a way. One has it just has to happen. And it
Yeah.
happens in different ways for different people, and they
Hmm.
express it in different ways. But that's kind of
Hmm.
the process, if you like. The little
Yeah.
ego falls away and being is suddenly revealed to itself.
Yeah, that's really interesting you're saying that.
Mm.
I have to think about that and process it because for me, it was like, um, oh, I feel more like deaf, dumb, and blind. It's like, I don't feel like I really know much of anything. It feels like this thing is just doing itself and this character is speaking and moving without actually an understanding of the verbiage or what's even happening. And so it's just like living this little universe and everybody's appearingly very separate in their appearances and the way they process things, and yet everybody is walking around kind of blind to self and um just being almost like everything is just appearing the way it is. It's happening as an appearance of me talking with Philo here on this podcast. There's no intent or purpose or it's just kind of it's just what's appearing to happen.
Yes, but all of that is being known, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to say all of that.
Well, no, it's not no.
But then how
I
is it all
wish it
being said?
was. I
How's
wish
it all
I
being
wish it
said?
was. What?
Everything that you just said, how were you
Yeah,
able to say that if it wasn't known?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know how anything gets expressed. It's like it's just doing itself in a sense.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
don't,
saying that, I'm not saying one
yeah,
knows how. I'm just saying that it is known.
yeah, okay, because I don't know where my thoughts come from.
But you know
For
you
it to be
have thoughts.
known, I would have to know what a thought is, right?
Well, you know that you have thoughts.
I don't know that.
Well, why did you say you don't know where your thoughts came from?
Because everything is simply just booming out. It's like, I don't think there's a controller or a doer of anything. And yet
Mm,
we appear to be having this conversation, but in a sense, it's just an appearance of what's particularly arising moment to moment. I can't even deconstruct what my words mean, and yet they seem to make sense, which is wild. But in the same token, it's just an expression coming out. I can't even make sense of what one word means versus another. There's even no knowing of thoughts and words and expressions that are coming up, but they naturally just come out. Like there's no controlling. It's almost like, in a sense, Philo, it's like there's movement and motion and then thoughts following those movements and motions, trying to make sense of the appearance. But I don't feel like there's a doer even trying to make sense of it, if that makes sense.
yeah, and no one mentioned the doer. I mean, I didn't mention
Yeah,
it. There isn't a
yeah,
doer as such,
yeah.
not in the way that we think of it. But something is being done,
Hmm. And
right?
not,
We don't
and
know
not,
where our thoughts come from, but we are aware of thoughts. They come into the space and we speak.
that's where I lose you because I don't feel an awareness of it.
Mm.
I think in the
Maybe
storyline,
how you're interpreting the word is different to mine.
yeah, 'cause it
But
feels like in
mine's
the
very clear.
storyline, there can be character awareness, but on a broader perspective, there is
Mm,
no awareness of what words are like. What any, I feel like to remember or to wake up to something, you would have to
mm,
know everything to know something. And we're so limited in perspective to actually wake up to the awareness of everything being presented. So our scope is so minute and minuscule compared to the brevity of everything arising.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, we are aware of whatever we are aware of.
yeah,
Right? We don't have to be aware of everything in the entire universe. Maybe there isn't an entire universe,
that's
you
true.
know, but we're aware of this. Otherwise, we couldn't point to it.
Okay. So I'm trying to, okay. So in Philo's perspective, there is an awareness happening, correct?
Um, I call it being.
So everything is being.
Yes,
Now I can get
everything.
behind that.
Yeah, everything
Yeah,
is being. Yeah.
yeah.
So there's nothing, so there's no negation anywhere. So if we
Hmm.
wanted to negate awareness, then I don't know what that means. There's no negation.
Yeah.
It's being, and being is being. Being
I
is
feel like,
what we might call aware.
yeah.
Being is what maybe is what thinks,
Hmm.
or think, or thoughts are being.
Yeah.
See, everything is included. This is how it can be seen to be non-dual because there's no negation. As soon as you
Hmm.
begin negating, then you have duality.
Hmm. Yeah. It's literally every perspective, every blade of grass, every cloud passing by. It's encompassing of everything, even our expression speaking. But in the same token, it's like we're being, I don't want to say we're being done, but it's almost like this appearance just arises with speaking so naturally. And I would say, like, if I'm going to say prior, it seemed like I had free will and volition and I was really making things happen. Whereas now it's like I'm only aware of what I'm aware moment to moment. For example, okay, so I'm an acupuncturist and I see a lot of patients, I hear a lot of stories, and I have this one patient that I saw yesterday, and she for 8 years, stories about how people at work pick on her. So we've tried different angles. And I'm like, okay, stand up for yourself. And she's try that. They continue. Okay, speak, working with your voice, get it out there. Again, the same story for 8 years. It's almost like the person isn't aware until an awareness arises within so that they can address something in a sense. So it feels like we're kind of just going through life blindly. And then if an awareness pops up and then it allows for some sort of change or, oh, I've been doing it like this. Oh my gosh, my whole life I thought one way and boom. We're not controlling that. So we're pretty much blind walking around, and then that awareness pops in that moment, no knowing why, and then the character makes a course correction or a change. But how did
Mhm.
that happen?
Well, the how is how is like why. It's almost impossible to answer.
Hmm.
But when you say everyone's walking around blindly,
Yeah.
do you mean psychologically? What do you mean? Because people walk around, they're not bumping into things, or what do you mean by that?
They almost are because everybody has almost a sense of their own universe and their own vision and their own way of seeing things that we aren't even getting in touch with each other and couldn't even know another in a sense to even like connect on that deeper level. It's all like projections. So the awareness is only to one's degree of what they can be aware of. So again, moving back to the sense that I can't know everything. because it's not arising in my direct experience, only a very limited perspective for me and apparently for everybody else.
Mm,
So we only can work with that minute amount of information that's arising, and we're at the mercy of whatever is arising at that particular moment of interaction. So, in a sense, we are blind because we're blind to the everything aspect that's arising and only having a very limited form of consciousness to be able to cohabitate with
mm.
another. So, in a
Well,
sense, we are blind bumping into each other. Like,
we see that in conflict, certainly.
yeah.
But what I would say is this blindness is being seen. If we were just humans and we were not human beings, then I might tend to agree with you. But we are human beings. Being
Hmm.
is not separate from the human. The human is not separate from the being. So
Yeah.
even though there's conflict, even though there's bumping into things, that's being seen by being. Being is actually being that.
Hmm.
So as individual, apparent humans, we have this limited view, right? But
Hmm.
as being's view is unspeakable.
Hmm.
There's the unspeakable aspect of being that humans um, are blind to in a way. But
Hmm.
being is not blind, never blind.
Hmm.
And even the
Yeah.
blindness is being.
Even what?
The blindness is being.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I think like maybe we're speaking in different terminology, but it seems like we're pointing to the same thing in the sense that being is everything. But it does feel like the character is very limited in perspective because being can take on the form of anything and any expression, even in limited perspective.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect. That's how it's seen here. Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. And you first saw this at 5 years old?
Well, I didn't see it with this amount of, I saw it through a child's eye, which I guess is in a way it's simpler. Like I couldn't have talked about it in the way that we
Yeah,
talk about it now, but it was the
sure.
same, it's the same reality. It's this non-dual being everything. Being the child, being the rain, being the tree, being the lost, being caught out in the rain,
Yeah,
being the sounds, the birds, everything.
yeah.
And that's never changed. It's just that as we grow and become humans, egos, we break
Mhm.
everything up and
Yeah,
we analyze and chop and dissect and then we get lost in all of that. And then we identify and we get into conflict. And
yeah,
we lose that view that every child has. But it's still there, even in the most conflicted human, it's still there. Like these protests
yeah.
are being seeing something and moving to protest. So
Hmm.
each individual has a limited view, but being sees and is everything. So it's the protests, it's also what's being protested against. Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible. Don't you sometimes wish, like, gosh, if everybody could see this, maybe like we would stop protesting and get along a little bit better.
It hasn't happened yet, though, right?
No, it's a nice thought,
It is a nice thought. It is.
So what's a day in the life of Philo?
Yeah, it's a good question. I work with at-risk youth in a
Okay.
horticultural program.
Wow.
And so
Beautiful.
these are the young men and women and trans men and women. They're
Oh,
young. They're under the age of 20, and we get them around the age of they're around seventh grade, so they're like 12, 11, 12. But they
mhm,
can't fit into regular schools because of their behaviors and their disabilities.
mhm.
So they have certain challenges. A lot of it's to do with environment, upbringing, parents, all of that. So
Yes.
they come to us, and we have an academic program, but we also have two or three very hands-on kind of vocational programs. One of them is horticulture, where they learn how to grow food,
Mhm. Oh,
plants, vegetables,
yeah.
fruits. And then we have this culinary program where they learn how to cook. So these two work hand in hand. And then there's
Oh,
another program where they learn how to work with wood. They learn how to use their hands, develop motor skills, do practical things.
mhm.
So I work in the horticultural part, and I work with these young kids. And
Mm.
we basically just try to model the behavior that will be acceptable in society. So we try to
Mhm.
be nice, we try to be kind, we try to be helpful, we work hard, and we model that for the kids. And many of them take that on and do well. Not all of them.
Yes. Beautiful. That's so rewarding.
It's very rewarding. It's very
Yeah.
much a part of this view of being. I see
Yeah.
it in this particular job very clearly.
Yeah. Do you ever communicate this, maybe not in this particular way, but do you find yourself communicating in a sense with some non-duality verbiage to these
No,
children?
no.
No.
But what I do, like they might say to me, "Oh, Mr. Mr. F, why are you because I spend a lot of time in the gardens. I do a lot of weeding and planting things, and I'm very
Beautiful.
quiet and peaceful. So they like to come around. They don't have a lot
Okay.
of peace in their lives.
Mm.
So they
Yeah.
kind of gravitate towards me. And they might
Yeah.
say, how can you spend half an hour pulling out weeds? And I say, well, it helps me to be calm. It's actually
Yes.
good for me. I feel good doing this. And I feel like I'm
Yeah.
being useful and I'm
Mhm.
being helpful. And if there's no weeds here, then there's more room for the vegetables and we get more things to eat. And they really see it that way. They see that a person can think outside of themselves into other people, other forms of being, and be patient and be quiet and happy and content. And to me, that's a teaching for them, a
Beautiful.
non-verbal teaching for them a way
Yes.
for them to also be happy and quiet and content. They can find something
Yes.
they enjoy doing, and
Yeah.
what that is, then they
Yeah.
can partake in that. So I kind of, it seems to work that way.
It's like you're naturally setting an example just by being you, which is
Yes,
beautiful.
yeah, it seems
Yeah.
that way. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate in that I have that type of personality, if you like.
Yeah.
There are other people that have different modes of being, but just as equally useful for these
Mhm.
kids. So it's
Yeah.
one thing operating, and it's beautiful to see.
Yes. And the children are benefiting.
We
And
like to think so.
oh, I'm sure they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and are they enjoying?
we can't really control what happens when they leave and get home, back into gangland and stuff.
No, but the beautiful thing is they have you as an example to see where they wouldn't have that normally in their life. And so it's like opening their eyes and getting themselves another perspective out of their box.
That
Yeah, you're
seems to be what's happening. Yeah.
yeah. And there's some taking to the gardening and helping, and they're starting to enjoy that.
They love getting their hands dirty. They love
Oh,
hands-on physical work. It's a way for them to use
yeah.
their energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you're giving them a beautiful gift because who knows in the future, someone might be a master gardener or um, plant gardens in their home when they grow old and it could trickle. You never know. It's like
yeah.
planting a seed. You're planting a garden and planting seeds, right?
Yes, that's how it's operating. And you know,
Yeah.
we're always giving them things, plants to take home. And we say, you know, if you kill it, don't it doesn't matter, we'll just bring you another one. We're always giving
Yeah.
them the harvests, the bounty, you know, we're making sure that
Yeah.
they get that so that they can experiment
Yeah.
and see if they really
That's
like.
amazing. Oh.
Yeah, we're very
And
fortunate that way.
yeah. And just changing the subject for a minute, I noticed you mentioned you have a book. Do you mind
Yeah.
telling me a little bit about your book?
Yeah, it's called Imaginary Conversations with Imaginary People.
Okay. Beautiful.
And the subtitle is Awakening to the Unspeakable Through Enlightened Dialogue. So dialogue just like what we're having now. In fact, to
Yeah.
me, all dialogue is enlightened. Everything's
Yeah.
enlightened, actually.
I love that perspective. Yes,
It's just
it is.
undifferentiated
It
enlightened.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's just, you know, from one end, from the human perspective, people, like you say, can be caught in these mental traps or these psychological traps for 8 years or whatever. From the point of view of being, and that all of that is just what is happening. It's okay. But
Hmm.
that can sound cold to someone that hasn't understood that. So we need to
That's
have
the
that.
unconditionality of
Yeah,
everything, being allowed to be
exactly.
everything, right? Yeah.
But this unconditionality taken the wrong way can sound a little heartless, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's
and
hard to digest.
it's not. You have to balance
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're
It
doing that
seems.
with your acupuncture. You know that objectively everything is
Yeah.
impersonal, but your work is to work with this person, right? And
Yes.
that's not separate, right? It's just how it is.
I'll tell you, Philo, it's funny because when this first started to sink in, I'm like, how am I going to work with people? It was this kind of, wait a minute.
Yeah, you're not
Now it's
working
so
with
natural
people.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
people are imaginary, and what you're working with is you're just being with being. Being
yes,
is loving.
yeah.
It
And do
is.
you, yes. And have you noticed, in your experience, because there's such an openness now,
Mm.
where there's no need to actually like prove a point or be so knowing like most people. Do you find that it creates deeper connections?
Yes, what I find is that one tends to listen more
Yeah.
and see more through the listening. And so with, for instance,
Yes.
with these kids, no one listens to them, and that's why they're always yelling.
Mm. Yes.
Because no one's
Yeah.
listening in their minds. No one's
Nobody's
listening to
listening.
me. No one sees me. So I'm going to yell and I'm going to cuss and I'm going to act out. That way I'll get
Yes.
some attention.
Yes.
Yeah. So I give
And
them when I speak to any of them, I give them my full attention. I'm listening.
oh, that's stunning that you can provide them with that they're not getting in their life. Because yes, most people do. They really want to be heard, but it's that sense of knowing that kind of clouds over everything, where it's almost like speaking becomes a competition and people aren't actually listening, but while you're speaking, they're thinking of the next response instead of fully feeling and processing everything, right?
Yes, exactly. That can be. Yeah. The best speakers are the best listeners, it seems to me.
Mm.
And just responding in that moment to whatever that moment's requesting and just being
Yeah.
open to it.
Yeah. And the fact that you're able to give that to the children is just a blessing. that they have
It's,
that
uh,
example. It's beautiful.
it's as I say, I'm very fortunate in that way. Um,
Yeah. Have you always done this line of work or has it evolved into this? Have you had other careers and other paths in your life?
yeah, I've had other I've had other careers and jobs. I for quite a long time I worked in marketing, which is almost the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
Because you're
I'm
taking,
shocked.
taking. But what I enjoyed about that was ideas, creativity.
Okay.
And I
Yes.
even then I understood that the creativity wasn't coming from this person, it was coming through. And so
Yes.
there, for us, we would talk and talk and talk about what we was, about the product or the service. And then we would go silent and we would just wait for an idea. And we understood that you can't just
Yeah.
have an idea, you have to wait. And if you're quiet enough, an idea will pop out. It's weird.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you write that down and you refine it, and then it gets changed.
Yes.
At least the initial creativity. Creativity is magic to me.
It's so magical.
Yeah,
Everything is creativity, right? It's
yeah.
just,
And it's all being doing that, No one's doing that, no
yes,
person.
it's mind blowing.
It is.
So, what is your modality for creativity? Are you more visual? Do you like to draw, write?
Mm,
How does it get expressed through Philo?
Through all of these things. These days it's more through talking, writing, reading, listening, not so much me, painting or creating something, me in
Hmm.
quotes, but more being
Yeah,
a
yeah,
recipient of the what being is doing through other people. So I
yes.
greatly enjoy that. But in terms like with the writing, like this drawing, I did all these drawings myself. And in the book, there are several
Oh, they're your
drawings.
drawings.
Yeah, they're like brush
Oh.
and ink. And
And
I
what is
enjoy,
that behind you? Is that
yeah,
that
it's
one of your,
actually
oh,
it's actually two faces looking at
oh,
each other.
wow.
The
Oh, I
cover of the
love
book is
that.
the cover of the book is two faces looking at each other, but the two faces look like one
Yeah.
face.
Oh,
So there's that
wow.
imaginary aspect. It's really just oneness speaking to oneness.
You don't, yes. I
Yeah.
love that.
But it
Yeah.
looks like this, right? It looks like two people here.
Hmm.
They're
But when you're
both each other.
sitting there, I see the one face.
Yeah. But duality is part of non-duality. It's not
Hmm.
separate. There really
And you could
isn't
say
any
there's no
duality.
non-duality, right?
There's neither.
There's neither.
Yeah. But you have to pass through duality and non-duality to get, somehow it feels to me that you have to pass through these modes in order to come to that. And
Mhm.
you have to be aware of duality and non-duality. We're aware of war and conflict, and yet we're
Mhm.
aware of this beautiful oneness. And then somehow there's a move beyond those. And that's
Mhm.
something that I write about in the book. It's something that happened here, a move
Mm.
beyond into what I can only describe as the unspeakable.
Yeah.
But the word that I use for it is being or the immediacy.
Hmm.
But it's really unspeakable.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the moment we open our mouth, it's just words flying out, and that's it too. So it's
yeah.
really impossible.
It's
We're pretty much
impossible.
taking on the impossible by speaking about this,
It is.
right?
It's
And
mission
yet this is all
impossible.
there is.
It's a paradox, it's
Yeah.
paradoxical. But in
Yeah.
in this in this place beyond, the closest I would say is that it's death.
Mm.
It's death.
Okay. Explain further, like what does death mean to you?
Death means disappearance of all phenomena and all concepts, all ideas,
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
And yet there's still something
Hmm.
there, which I call being. I call it being.
Being
Yeah.
okay. So you wouldn't say nothing being everything. You would say just being.
Yeah, because nothing that can't be.
Hmm.
It's an ontological, it's just a way we've used the word to mean that there's something is empty, right? But
Hmm.
nothing, but a cup is never empty. You might drink all of the tea out of the cup, but it's still full.
Hmm.
It's just full of something else. So for me, there's no such thing as nothing. It's kind of like a mental conception going nowhere. But what there
Hmm.
is, in my view, is everything.
Yes.
And everything, I can point to anything and say that's everything, but I can't point to nothing.
You know, that's interesting. I would say like everything is full of atoms, neutrons, protons, electrons, like everything appears to be filled, and yet not. It's an appearance of that filled with everything, but we literally can't label a single thing. It's like we're kind of like it's like we're trying to know things through science, epistemology, every form of expression is trying to be known, and yet at
Mhm.
its core, there's nothing behind it, in a
Well,
sense.
there's the unspeakable, ungraspable behind it. But that
Hmm.
unspeakable is not nothing. But we use that word. No thing. I don't have any issues with no thing because it's not a
Yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
when someone says nothing, that to me, I'm not sure what they mean. Do they mean no
To
thing
me,
or they just
nothing
say
means
nothing?
unknown, like unknowable. That's just the way I digest it, is it's
Mm,
unknown. Um,
yeah,
because what would be nothing?
right.
Like, I don't know.
And when you really dig down deep into it,
Hmm.
there really isn't the unknown.
Okay. So you think it's known?
I think everything is known by being,
Interesting. Okay.
which is unspeakable.
Yeah. So being to you would potentially be like a creator in a
Mm,
sense, would you say,
no,
knowing all of its creation? No,
no,
no.
not in the way that we think of the word creator, and or
Okay.
it's not like the word. Now we're touching on the word God, which I would prefer
Yeah.
than the word creator.
Okay.
God
Yeah.
as pure being, um, being everything. We could say that,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
unspeakable.
Sure.
It's but we all know it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It seems that way.
Another
It's
way
right in
another way
front of
to
your
think
face. It's like hard to
it's
miss.
it couldn't be any closer to you. It is you. So it's known, right? But we just can't say what it is because that
Mhm.
requires mental apparatus and functionings and thoughts and stuff. But it
Mhm.
can be known in a way, it can be known throughout the entire body mind, but not in a way that can be communicated or spoken about. It's unspeakable, but it's not
Mhm.
unknown. It's a little
Mhm.
bit like when you go to sleep and you have the dreamless sleep stage,
Yeah.
and you wake up and you think, well, I wasn't there. There was nothing there, and it was
Mhm.
completely unknown. It's
Mhm.
a little bit like that,
Yeah.
except you knew that
Yeah.
you were asleep, right? Something was there, but it wasn't aware of phenomena. There was
Mhm.
nothing there for it to be aware of.
Yes.
So death is can be a little bit like that. I've died, by the way. I'm speaking from experience.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, follow. What? Oh my gosh. Okay. I'd like to hear a little bit about that. Wow.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Yeah, I've actually had several deaths.
Really?
But they're real, and but I'm obviously back, right? So I didn't, have that
Yeah.
ultimate death.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the death of phenomena
Mm-hmm.
is um, is known by being. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way that I can, and I can't, it's a bit like saying, well, I was in dreamless sleep, so I don't remember or know anything. But all I know was that I was in dreamless sleep, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm refreshed and happy because of that. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
It's known, but it's not known, or the knowing can't be expressed anywhere in this body mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be felt. And when it's felt as this underlying peace, love, joy, contentness, equanimity.
Mm.
It's kind of felt in that way.
Yeah.
Not and by me and by others.
Mm-hmm.
So people can, like these kids can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
They can't express what it is or know what it is, but they can feel
Yeah.
it. And we all
Yeah.
can. And we all have that. We all are that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a matter of whether being wants it to express in a particular way through Leo or through Philo or that's being's game, if you like. Being is a
Mm-hmm.
little bit like a child in a way.
Really? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I say being is kind of a badass because, well, I mean, it's to me, it's like I was just talking to Natalie the other day. It's like
Mhm.
heavy metal because being is not afraid to kill itself.
Well,
Being
it's
will attack itself, eat itself, kill itself. Like there's no bars held back. It's everything. Like it's in the light and love, and it's in the death and destruction, and it just doesn't even give a crap about eating itself.
well, we could see it like that, and I wouldn't disagree. We do have killings, nasty deaths, and all kinds of stuff. We can't, and that is being also.
Hmm.
I don't know that being, the other interesting view that I have about all of this, all the entire phenomena
Hmm.
that we talk about and live in, is that it's all a dream,
Hmm.
and being is the dreamer.
Hmm.
And in that sense, nothing has actually ever happened.
Right. Yeah. And that would be the apparently or the appearance of what's happening. And I think even Einstein said this is an illusion, albeit a persistent one.
Yeah,
So it's scientifically proven too.
yeah. And
Yeah.
in that death, that was that was something that somehow was allowed is the wrong word, but it's something, it was kind of like this, when the fire goes out and there's this kind of little smoke and it's the end of the fire, and then even
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
disappeared. But a little bit of smoke was this understanding that nothing had happened. There was only ever being.
Yeah.
And for me, that's where the peace comes from, the equanimity and the love and all of
Yeah.
these positive qualities. They underlie the negative, positive world that we have,
Mhm.
with its joys and its horrors. But underneath that, there's this inherent endogenous peace.
Mm.
Or we could say some people say it's unbounded love or it's unconditional love. It's all of those
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
It's kind of an underlying thing that is able to, you know, be in this world as well.
Hmm.
I think that's our default mode as humans. I think that's all that
Really?
humans are really chasing for. Through the horror and death and violence, they're
Yeah.
chasing peace. The Israelis say they want peace, and the Palestinians want peace.
Hmm.
So and I believe them. Of course, that's what they want.
Yeah.
But the way that they're going about it, both of them, it's not obviously not bringing that. But
Hmm.
being is doing all of that and being all of that. Somehow it's necessary. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the right word, but it's happening anyway.
Like you say, that childlike innocence, to me, it's almost like innocence at play. It's like children on the playground going,
Yeah.
yep, 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 yep.
Kind of
Yep.
like that. Except when it's
Yeah.
like bombs and guns. Bombs and
Yeah.
guns. Bombs and guns. I got
Bombs
a
and
friend
guns.
who's Irish, and I love
Hmm.
the Irish accent.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
Scottish accent too, both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just saw Kenneth Madden this past weekend. He came
yeah,
from Ireland
yeah,
and yeah, brilliant, beautiful expression. And I love that accent, like you said. I mean, yeah. Even languages, and just listening to other languages and not knowing what they're saying, but hearing the tonality and the expressions, and
yes,
it's incredible how that can happen.
yes. My parents are from Nigeria, and Nigerians are very loud. They're loud
Really?
people. Yes, they
What
speak
happened,
loudly.
Philo? It
They're
skipped
very
you.
emotive. I know. I'm probably not the real child. I was adopted.
A
But
baby now.
I just remember mornings being out
Yeah.
as a child and hearing all this loud shouting. And you might think, oh, they're arguing, but no, they're just talking.
No.
Yeah.
Did you ever tell your parents or your family, anybody close about this? I'm
No,
curious.
not until I'd written that book had been written. And
Hmm.
then I decided. So I called my brother and I sent them information. You know,
Yeah.
his boy, one of his boys actually bought the book, read it, and had an awakening. And speaks
What?
to me all the time. We talk all the time now over WhatsApp. So he was somehow
Oh,
primed. He said, Uncle, if I'd have read this book a year ago, I would have said I know all that. And I said, yeah,
oh,
isn't it interesting?
wow. Incredible.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
not anything new. We do know it, but when we're open, it can move in and it can then being
Yeah.
can then decide, okay, let's have the view from here.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
that person
Yeah.
gets it.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a
Yeah.
being, it's a person doing stuff. It's not really like that, but I'm just kind of using that colloquialism.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
don't want to sound all, kind of like silly. I'm trying to,
No, no, I
yeah,
can appreciate speaking normally in natural
yeah,
expressions because
yeah,
it gets challenging to have to box in everything you say into
right, right.
non-duality terminology. So
Yeah,
yeah, no,
we can
yeah,
move beyond that now. Everyone understands non-duality and we
yeah,
can make that assumption, hopefully.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful, my goodness. Oh, Philo, I love it. So tell me, how can people reach out to you and get in contact with you, and where can they buy your book?
Well, they can buy the book. It's on Amazon as a paperback.
Okay.
And it's on, if they search for that title or just search Philo, Sophie King,
Hmm.
and they can buy it on Barnes and Noble as a hardback. I love the hardback. I mean, the design,
Yeah.
how it came out. I surprised myself.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get that. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
get that, and then we'll do another interview after I read your book.
yeah.
Okay?
And then we
Yeah.
have a non-duality cafe, which is it's a it's a YouTube channel, Non-Duality
Mhm.
Cafe. I do that with James Waite.
Okay.
And then we also have a website, Non-Duality Cafe, Non-Duality Living Cafe. And
Beautiful.
so that's how we can be reached.
Okay. Do you do any communications with people, any one-on-ones or anything like that?
I do, and I'm happy to
Mhm.
do it with anyone
Beautiful.
that wishes, has a question or wants to just speak or say something. I'm happy. They can
Yes.
email Philo at Dream Pop. Dream like a dream at night and pop like a bubble bursting.
Oh, that's great.
Philo at
That's great.
dreampop.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, happy
Perfect.
to talk. I will never
Oh,
charge money for any of this stuff. Uh,
wow.
never. But if they buy the book, that would, I'm happy if they do that.
Ah. Oh my gosh, Philo, that's so beautiful. I really appreciate you taking the time to communicate and express your beautiful expression. It's just really nice to connect with you and see things through the eyes of Philo for a momentary moment here.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Leah.
Yeah. And we'll do this again with Natalie. I'm excited to continue speaking with you and going further in depth with all the beautiful expressions.
That sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.